capability, but when Hikaru does it, he just looks majestic. I mean, almost untouchable, in fact.
The end boss. He's the end boss when it comes to blitz.
Wow.
This kid.
Yeah. And he's had this reputation for almost 15 years, 10 years. I mean, when he was young, he was a great blitz player just as a preteen.
That's right. In this game, of course, is going to be quite interesting. We're going to keep our eyes on Garry Kasparov versus Nakamura. Both of them love to pull faces that are perfect for internet memes.
Well, Garry certainly would love to win this game to just spoil Nakamura's party just a little bit, of course, as they go into a scotch again.
And by the way, Garry, on the first day of his scotch, was achieving positions that he was really mastering. Now everybody is playing this variation against his scotch.
Yeah, they're all you're totally right. They're all copying Hikaru because the other line is like a little bit trickier to play when you haven't analyzed. This one's a bit more easy to play in blitz.
Exactly. And this is just the adjustments that the elite grandmasters make.
And Naka is the expert of that. What openings are good to play in blitz? What openings are better to play in classical? Because he has so much experience and he's such a practical player.
Absolutely.
He's willing to change it up.
We should point out that Wesley So is not doing anything in his game against Fabiano Caruana. He basically has to win out, but he has simply simplified that game there. And Wesley's got to hope that Garry wins as they play this position. I think Wesley must be looking for a win, though, in this game. So we'll see what Garry can do to make any kind of headway against Naka. But look at Naka again. This is his posture when he is comfortable. He does not stay focused in focus mode, that is up, alert, over the board, when he feels like he's just okay. And he's just leaning back now, arms folded.
He's very content.
The neurons are firing well. The brain's just working perfectly. And he knows this is the mode he gets in when he wins game after game after game against anybody. And Nakamura just simply one of the best blitz players in the world.
Ever seen.
No question about it. Now, a matchup we would love to see, no question.
Magnus?
Magnus versus Naka. I think that would be
fun.
Magnus versus Naka would certainly be a great match. I think people would pay to see that one. As
I would pay to see that.
Oh, man.
It's just fantastic.
You were told that you could not watch that?
No, I cry.
How much do you want me to pay?
That would be a huge punishment, actually. That should be our next bet. And let's take a look at who's in the audience. We've got our women's champion, Nazi Pikidze.
And number 2.
Somehow she's made friends with Tatev Abrahamian. Of course,
they were friends.
Of course, I'm joking. They were friends before, but not an easy situation with both of them playing for the title and Nazi leapfrogging against her at the last moment. But obviously, in chess, you gotta. That's the game. You gotta make friends with your rivals and play against them at some point.
Absolutely. Interesting move, Queen D2 by Garry Kasparov here. He had both pawns hanging in the center. I thought that he was going to play Queen C5, actually, posting up on the C5 square, but Queen D2 inviting a capture of his E4 pawn, and I'm sure Hikaru Nakamura is looking at that E4 pawn, very, very tempting. There's only one play in the position, D5, attacking this knight. The rook would come over to D8, pinning the knight to the queen. And does Garry have compensation? And of course, knight C3 castles. And I'm not 100% sure that this full compensation there.
Actually,
variation.
the inch is giving white the edge.
Seriously?
Yeah, white the edge. In that position.
I couldn't be more wrong.
Well, we can often bail out with the C7 pawn, right? There's often a pawn to snaggle.
Right. White has lots of initiative here, and that's what's justifying it. And Nakamura, deep into a think, at least a minute he looks like he spent. He went from being ahead on the clock to now being way down on the clock. That last move by Garry, Queen D2, actually the engine's very first choice. Garry defending his pawn, preparing the D5 thrust. Looks as though it has befuddled Nakamura, and he needs to figure something out very quickly. He also has bishop F3 that runs into bishop to G3. And he has taken queen takes, and Gary leans back in shock seeing that move. Queen takes on e4. I mean,
Yeah,
that just
bring that
simply
position
allows
up.
the win of a piece for a couple of pawns, and he has decided to go for this position. Nakamura not wanting to have a position where he stood worse strategically, has sacrificed his piece. But he currently has 3 pawns for it.
Big decision, and I like White's position.
Yeah.
The two Bs especially should give White a clear edge.
Well, he can
But
also
C7
get a
is
pawn
also
back on
hanging.
c7.
And
so
that's
he-
a huge pawn because that stops you from rolling with your center pawn.
Exactly. Queen takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes c7. That'd be an automatic for me. I'm a pawn grabber.
it's happening.
And there's Gary grabbing the pawn as
Can
well.
anyone say insufficient compensation?
Me? I'll say
Yes,
it.
a big decision by Nakamura. He's going to have to call on his entire repertoire of defensive skills to save this one, as Gary now has dropped his bishop back, and you saw him screw that piece into the
Yes.
c3
Did
square.
you like that twist?
Yes, that was a nice
That-
little move there. Like, you are in trouble, sir. I'm a piece up. The 2 bishops are now off the board after knight takes, but he's got an extra knight. Well, it's an extra bishop on the board.
And those
No,
2 pawns
and
are
the-
totally insufficient for the bishop on
Yeah.
g3. This is
especially,
dominating.
especially since we're ganging up in the d5 pawn.
We should
Very,
point out,
very
if Naka
quickly.
goes down this game, Wesley So is dominating currently in his position against Fabiano Caruana. So that would close the gap quickly. Naka now in trouble, our leader in trouble in this position. Can he save this game? He's got 3 pawns, it looks like. 2 pawns, excuse me.
2 pawns,
2
but
pawns
after
for the
knight-
piece.
And
After knight b5, are we
he's
going to get
gonna
one
have
back?
one pawn,
Yeah.
actually, knight b5, and it will be over.
Yeah, it's
over.
Just, this is just kaput. I mean, come on.
Bishop f2 is also being given as a strong move, as the strongest move in the position. Surprisingly, knight b5 also wins the pawn, but allows king to c6 with some tricks apparently.
I
but
see.
he did not play either
He played
move.
neither of them, rook
he
d3.
played rook to d3, and now king c6, the knight on e2. He knows that pawn on d4 looks delish. He wants lunch right now as everybody's ganging up.
'cause we
And
can play-
black defends, and here's the extra piece. The value of the extra piece, and everybody's defending the d4 pawn. It's the only thing holding black's position together, as black is defending with everything, and Gary now resetting. Rook check, looking to put the rook on c4.
Right.
That's right. He's going to put the rook on c4 instead. I was surprised he didn't put his rook on a4 originally, because that would have also kept the a pawn at bay.
Right.
And now what can Nakamura do to save this position, as his d4 pawn is about to drop, and if it does, he'll simply lose the game. This looks completely lost now.
That's right. I mean, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he resigns at some moment. And he's played, although Nakamura does not like to give up, and he's played the
No.
move b6.
Right. But that was the
What's
bullet,
funny, though,
the bullet
what's
rule.
funny is this.
The bullet rule. This is not exactly bullet.
Never resign.
But guys, check this out.
Yes.
If knight takes on d4
Yes.
and the king moves,
Yes.
how do you unpin yourself? Knight takes d4, king anywhere. Yeah, king a6. How do you unpin yourself as white? You'd have to somehow maybe get your king to c3?
Yeah.
But even that doesn't unpin yourself. How do you unpin? This is what Gary is studying right now. How you win the pawn, but you cannot unpin yourself. And it's this is the only thing that's causing trickery. He can't take the pawn yet. That capture creates too difficult a technical issue to take on d4, and he decided to not capture just yet and just play slowly, leave the pawn there. It's a weakness for now, so don't bother it. And he's just building his position, as now his rook goes to c7. He's decided the pawn is a blockade to black. It's a weakness, don't touch it. And now look at that, forcing the black rook over to f8. Gary getting more activity.
But we can play for b4 and rook a3 as well.
Of course, and he's
b4
played
has
b4.
played, yeah.
Has played very sharp play by Kasparov, and now he's just overwhelming the position. This is all him now. Beautiful
Yes.
play.
Yeah,
Beautiful
just-
play.
Beautiful play. Understanding not to take the pawn at that moment was critical, and now Naka realizes that he's busted. He's now got to fight for his life as he plays this move, and here the knight comes back to the
Hitting
e2
the-
square,
hitting the
but
knight
now
on
it is a
e4.
pawn.
Yeah.
Now he's won the pawn cold, and there it is. Rook takes, and he's got the second pawn in his pocket, and Nakamura scrambling now after rook takes rook f5.
Rook F5. He's down a piece. He's down a
Exactly.
piece for one pawn. No,
This is hopeless.
This is
and down on the clock.
yeah. This is resigned soon.
This is to
I
be
think.
resigned. Yes. A very nice move. I like that
And
move.
Wesley is winning completely against Fabiano.
Winning. Yes.
So this result will affect the standings dramatically. A mate threat on the board. Give us another pawn. He's just grabbing pawns left and right. Nakamura
And now
stunned
B6.
right now. It could have been a coronation, but it looks as though he's going to simply lose the game, offering a trade of rooks.
And guys, this sets up an incredible
Amazing finish.
last round for us
Yes.
in this Ultimate Bliss Challenge. Wow. What
Gary
a tournament.
controlling the board with that last move, and now just knows he's the cat and Nakamura is the mouse right now. Can he finish him off? Still playing is Nakamura. You know his defensive skills. Here we go. Check. And can he put together the sequence as Nakamura has got two of his pawns
And the time
on lock? He's still he's equalized on time now. Look at Nakamura defend. Amazing defense right now. The game should be over already,
Yeah.
but Naka is still defending.
Wesley won
did
this
win this
game,
game.
setting up for an incredible finish.
Well, that's only if Gary wins. Gary is not finding the way to win this position. A piece up. He has not figured it out. Now he's brought his rook backwards to guard everything. And how does he figure out the win? Bishop attacking rook, chasing that away. Nakamura not giving him any easy road to win this position. And now he's trading rooks. There goes a trade of rooks happening
That's
on
it.
the board.
So that he can play F4 and then advance with his king
It
up the
still
board.
worked. The black king looks to go to B4. He's played rook to C4. Doesn't that allow rook D3?
Rook D3, Rook F4.
And he has played it, rook F4, and now his pass F pawn is the story of the position. But
Right.
there's a pass B pawn for black.
Which will be curtailed after Bishop E5. Posting up. What? I thought he was going to play King up and Bishop E5. This is not the technique I would have thought Gary would use.
No, but it's winning now. Now it is winning. That F pawn galloping down the board really
Bishop
quickly.
E6.
And this is going to be it. Rook check, chasing the king away and winning a rook.
There it goes.
Is Kasparov.
Woo!
Playing spoiler,
spoiler.
amazing by the king, Gary Kasparov.
And did you see his
Gary has a
arms,
lot
like-
of titles.
Like finally, I got some luck. I got a break. And what, Jennifer? How does this set us up for the last
Nakamura
round?
is smiling
Well,
there,
this
laughing
puts-
as though it doesn't mean anything.
This puts Wesley in